Ladies and gentlemen, today our guest on the show, Women Leaders in Petchem series at Insights with Nidhi Verma, is Vartika Shukla, Director, Technical and Member on Board of Engineers India Limited. Vartika is a chemical engineer from IIT Kanpur and is certified with an Executive General Management program from IIM Lucknow. Vartika has over 32 years of extensive consulting experience comprising design, engineering, and implementation of complexes in refining, gas processing, petrochemicals, and fertilizers. She has led successful completion of many prestigious projects in oil and gas and the petchem industry, both in India and overseas. Vartika has steered process design, R&D, and the entire functions of engineering, piping, equipment, instrumentation, electrical, and structural. She has been leading new initiatives in biofuels, digitalization, energy efficiency, Make in India, and startup initiatives of EIL. Vartika is a very active member of the prominent industries forums like FIPI, CII, and FICCI. In recognition of her outstanding contribution of the oil and gas sector, she has been bestowed with several prestigious accolades, namely First Petrofed Women Executive Award, Scope Excellence Award, and MOPNG Innovation Award. A very warm welcome to my show, Vartika.
Hi, Nidhi. Thank you for the lovely introduction and a great hello and to everybody on the show. Thank you so much, Nidhi.
Ma'am, I've had the opportunity to know you for a very long time now, and you always come across as a very gentle, very warm, and an extremely pleasant friend. When I actually did the research for this session, I was impressed on your achievements, accolades, awards that you have been honored with. I'm so happy to have you in this session today.
Thank you.
Um, do share some highlights of your initial days with us, your childhood, Lucknow, your youth, your college days. Please do share.
You take me back down memory lane, Nidhi, and it is uh, really a lovely question to begin with. Uh, yes, I was born in Lucknow and I did my initial education up to my 12th in Lucknow. And it was a lovely town and very easy in those days. Uh, of course, I have been nurtured uh, not only at my home but also in school. I was taught by Irish nuns who, put in a lot of stress into reading, in doing a lot of extracurricular activity. So I was pretty active even in my school days. I was heading my school as a head girl, and then uh, that helped me, kind of associate with not just the academics, but also several other activities which the school was involved in. Uh, I also remember lovely days where, as a family, there was more time to spend with each other and a lot of picnics and stuff like that, around Lucknow. And essentially coming from a family, my father and most of his brothers were engineers. So there was kind of a natural path to, take. So that kind of led me to take up mathematics. I had biology and mathematics in my class 12. And I did get into one of the medical colleges also, but then there was pressure to go towards set path. So I went and did my college in IIT, and that was a lovely campus and absolute academic excellence. In fact, I was initially in awe with the kind of faculty we had and my own batchmates who were so very talented and so very, uh, uh, intelligent and the cream of everything, So it was a little daunting in college. However, it was a great experience, and that actually not just taught the subjects, but college life actually taught us more on being, analytical in every aspect. So before looking at any issue or any aspect, uh, looking at all the factors and all the possibilities, when in kind of analyzing it and then into decision making. So that kind of a very uh, versatile education, which was also blended with a lot of other subjects of arts and psychology and humanities and stuff. So that kind of, it was a great time in college as well. Of course, we were very few girls, and there were lots of boys. And coming from a convent background, it was not easy to adjust. There was definitely a lot of difference, but in the environment, but it was more very open kind of environment. So that kind of helped in bridging that little bit of gap which I actually faced in my college.
So beautiful, ma'am. You're also taking me down the memory lane. You mentioned I was also brought up by Irish nuns. I'm from Loreto Convent, Tara Hall,
All
and
right.
was also the head girl there. Since you mentioned it, brought the time back, and yes, it puts you in a position where you need to kind of become a leader at the very initial days. Absolutely. And ma'am, you actually went into IIT. I would share with you that I'm from Simla, and these RECs NITs used to be called RECs then, and our world stopped at RECs. IIT was not even in the periphery anywhere. So we were very happy. REC was our dream and we got there. We are happy there. Anyway, ma'am, who was your Margdarshak who kind of, inspired you to take this less traveled path? Because in our college, also in our NIT, there were hardly, I think, numbered girls in the whole college, engineering college.
So, as I mentioned, my father was an engineer, and his brothers were also engineers. So, very right from initial years, and he was an automobile engineer. So, and he used to work hands on. He studied in Germany, so they work hands on. They don't believe in giving their a car or a scooter somewhere else. So, I kind of associated with several weekends with him in getting fixing this and fixing that. So the engineering aspect was kind of there already in the house, and I was witness to that. So that was nothing new per se in going in that direction. And in those days, if you recall, it was either medicine or it was
Engineering.
engineering. So out of the two, this choice seemed more, kind of familiar, so as to speak, at the family level. So I was more keen to go there. And our the bringing up primarily never kind of differentiated between my brother and me. So we were both equals, and it was never thought that there should be any difference in the choice of career or choice of a future. Now, having said that, but the Margdarshak which you mentioned is my mother, and she was herself very talented, and she was a Sanskrit scholar, and she was a Visharad in Qatar, but she could not pursue that because she brought us up, and she kind of more or less sacrificed her own career. So she was um, very practical, and she was very determined that I should definitely take up a career, and I would give her complete credit to what she has steered my persona. My strength actually is derived from her strength, So I mean, she's the one who actually has put me where I am.
What a emotional, I think when she's going to watch this interview, I'm sure she's
She's no longer with us. We lost her, but yes, she would definitely would have cherished it.
she's
Yes,
with us. She's with us,
yes,
ma'am.
yes, she's
I
with us.
think, I don't know why I'm feeling that she's right now smiling from the heavens on you. Absolutely. Ma'am, in 1988 you joined as a management trainee, And then you rose to the ranks of being on the board of EIL. I mean, this is absolutely a success story. With your sheer excellence, skill, and brilliance, what incidents and events that come to your mind when you look back at your journey, ma'am?
So, Nidhi, it's just not uh, my journey. I would say, put it like that. Of course, if you ever get to work in a company like EIL, and it's my second, home, for sometimes first home. See, the environment in EIL is so very conducive, and it recognizes merit uh, without any frills or any biases attached to it. And I have been very, very fortunate to have tremendous mentors, and it would be unfair to name one. As I have grown, I have always been mentored, and had lovely teams as I grew up on the in the ladder. But the few things which I believe and I have endeavored to do is always stepped out of my usual role. So right in the beginning of my career, uh, going to site, looking at plants, and visiting various, startups, commissioning was an integral part to our experience, gathering knowledge, and then gaining the confidence to actually take decisions as we, groom ourselves. So many times, initially, there were units which were being commissioned, and some of my own batchmates or seniors were sent, boys, I mean. And one day I gathered courage and walked up to my DGM's room. And that time, a DGM's room was kind of inaccessible. It was something like, oh, I mean, you think twice into entering. So, but I gathered my courage and I went to him and told him, sir, I would like to go to site to this commissioning. And it was just in late 90s, so just about 1.5 years, 2 years into the company. So he looked at me and he said, "Where is it?" So I told him I want to go to Uran. Uh, he said, "Well, Uran, let me think about it." So I came back, hoping that. But then in EIL, that's the culture. He did talk to the GM, and they, in turn, later I came to know, decided that Uran is perhaps not conducive. In those times, women were not so easily, kind of blended into sites. But he came back to me a couple of months later and said, "Look, Partika, you could go to Vijaypur site, Gales Vijaypur. That plant is getting commissioned," and I jumped at it. So it was something which I went forward to take. So taking challenges, going on your own, stepping out of your usual work is one of very important things which one must do, and I really did that, taking the risk of going into a senior's room and asking something. But and he met that, and he kind of gave me that opportunity. Similarly, I also recall many times some of my seniors used to send me out to really alone to kind of a remote international locations also to see what kind of businesses like Egypt or to Turkey interior in Pertamina, not Pertamina, that is Jakarta. And I never batted an eyelid. Although my heart used to pound going into new places, and there have been different experiences, but I never shied away from doing it. And I took that, I took care that I was vigilant of my own travel internationally in these uncharted kind of territories, and handled the situation and came back and single-handedly managed it. So I think that kind of confidence, of course, there is an opportunity, but one must take that opportunity. And if you take that opportunity, there is always some benefit which comes out of it, and it is very enriching. It is very, building confidence, and it grooms you as a person. and and the last thing I would say on this subject is that uh, I was always keenly interested in not just doing the technical part of my work, which I was a core technical, chemical engineering process, etc. But I was also quite attracted to the aspects of commercial, aspects of contracts, aspect of business development, which kind of gives you a holistic view early on in your career. So
Thank you,
that
ma'am. It's going to
that
be so much encouraging for the young girls who are in our industry to hear your journey. They will learn to, from your example a lot. Just coming to my mind, because we've done few other leaders in this women's series also. We just finished Alicia Chlorine. She's the owner of Chlorine, and she said that a company where mostly it is machinery and manufacturing. And she said, I just used to invite myself to the table and say, come on, guys, let's have a discussion. So this phrase caught on, that invite yourself to the discussion table. Don't wait for an invitation. And another mind that comes to is Aruna Kumari from Reliance Industry. She said that she was on the shop floor much earlier. And she said that goni uthani aani chahiye. If you're on the shop floor, you do not wait for male counterparts to come and help you with the goni. So this has become a viral thing, that सबको गोनी उठानी खुद आनी चाहिए. So you're
sure.
right in saying that you just got to take the lead, and then your path will kind of open up. Right, ma'am? Ma'am, you have a very demanding career. How do you balance your home, your family? You've got two beautiful children, Aman and Sanjana. When they have demands on you, and so does your office, some deadline. How do you manage that?
So I would add my husband onto the demand factor.
Okay, ma'am. Yeah, he's going
Yeah.
to be listening to this too.
So, yeah, he's been a very big support and my best friend, my uh, go-to person in all kinds of issues, that
Let me say
one
yes.
has. Yeah, that would. So, and even coming from his family, he is all the bhabis and everyone kind of are also in profession. So it helps a lot for that. Yes, you're right. In early years, it was not easy to balance home and office. Office was also demanding, and at no point of time have I ever, maybe barring a very few stray instances, mentioned that there was something going on at home because of which I was not at work.
Yeah.
It has always been that home is home and work is work. But I have always believed, and I even now in my work plan, I believe that there always has to be room for something which will go wrong. Not everything will go right. So, and it will not everything will go as per your plan. So I always kept a kind of a lot of helps back home. I had a plan A, plan B, plan C. So something would kind of fall in place to kind of steer to the early years of the children. Uh, but as parents, we have always given a lot of freedom to our children, and we've never restricted them from not doing this or not doing that. So I'm proud to share my son is a lawyer, and he's from NLS Bangalore, and he's working here with the senior counsel in Supreme Court. So he's doing very well for himself. And my daughter, she's studying to be an economist. She's doing her master's in New York in Columbia. So, and they have done it all by themselves, just probably, their own passion in careers quite different than ours. Both my husband and myself are engineers. So that's I think the biggest achievement that anyone can have, and I'm blessed to kind of have that.
I'm so happy. I did not know their, professions and what they were doing. Of course, this is the highest that children can actually get to. I'm getting goosebumps even if I hear. I think here is, ma'am, where the benefit of education comes, where you've been educated so well by your parents and that you've imparted to your children, and the liberty to choose where they wanted to do, and see they're conquering the world. They are the next gen. I'm really very happy. I'm thrilled to hear this. I'm so looking forward to meet them when I'm in Delhi, and Sanjana is back on a holiday from New York, ma'am. Ma'am, in the morning, while I was preparing for this session, I came across a World Economic Forum Global Gender Report, which actually got released today morning. It has benchmarked 156 nations across the globe for 2021. And India has slipped 28 places and has now come to the 140th rank, which was a little sad to see. And the pandemic has slowed down the tracks for the progress India has made towards achieving the gender parity. The women's participation rate and the share of women in technical roles has declined in 2020, reducing the estimated earned income of women, which is one fifth of that of men. The gender gap in India has widened to 62.5%, largely due to women's inadequate representation in politics, technical, and leadership roles. The data shows that it will take approximately 140 years to bridge the gender gap worldwide, and the pandemic has impacted women more severely than men. The gap is the widest on the political empowerment dimension, and economic participation and opportunity being next in line. Ma'am, you are one of the very few women for our industry who played a very active role in the national policy contributions. Make in India, National Biofuel Policy 2018, Pradhan Mantri Yojana process. You're a part of all of them. What is your top of mind directive or policy that you would want the government to implement?
So, on that note, I would like to begin by sharing, and we all know that as a nation, we are aspirational. And as our Honorable Prime Minister mentions, we need to provide clean, affordable, and sustainable energy, which is the right of each and every citizen of the nation. And that is a very challenging and daunting task, considering that it will increase our emissions and it will actually, give more of a detrimental impact in terms of our climate itself. So these are both. It's a dichotomy, and it's both objectives. How to take it forward is what the ministry is and the policy formulations are looking at. So, the from that angle, the one thing which is extremely important, and wherein policy incentives or policy provisions are required to be in place, they are in place, and but they need to be bettered in terms of assuring the investor on a long-term kind of support, because most of these renewable sector policies and renewable technologies do not pay back on their own. And that's why they are not there world over. So, to realize the benefit of this into our own economy, there are already discussions, and very soon we will see a lot of other policies which actually reduce our carbon footprint. So, policies in terms of utilization of our waste or our biomass, which is already a lot of it is in place and being realized, like Satat, and you mentioned the biofuel program, etc. But in terms of MSW, and now if you have also seen, the government of India has launched the green hydrogen mission, the national mission for hydrogen. So that is all these are in, policy enablers towards greening our environment to make it more sustainable, corporations becoming more sustainable. So from that angle, the policies which look at the end goal and leave the path of reaching the end goal by market driven mechanisms in terms of policies which are mature enough to be taken to the ground, that kind of framework, which kind of mandates the use of such policies. It is already under discussion, but as soon as it comes into the industry, it would definitely benefit transfer of technology. It would benefit also development of such technologies and rapid commercialization, scale up and commercialization.
Thank you for sharing that, ma'am. You are a permanent invitee to the Scientific Advisory Committee of Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, and a member of the Working Group on Biofuels, member Surface Coal Gasification Committee and Task Force for Evolving Methanol Economy at the Niti Aayog, and many more. Ma'am, do you see enough representation of women in such decision-making high level bodies of the government?
Uh, my experience, if we see the bureaucracy, there are, and I have seen some of the uh, leadership there, which is equally represented and very well steered by women. And I admire some of the personas who actually are so knowledgeable and they can steer such initiatives so well in most of the framework. Coming from the industry side, uh, this is a story which starts very in the very beginning at the entry level itself, when we have very few women who join the technical, teams, and then how engineering itself and how they groom, and many of them in between their career, mid-career, uh, they kind of have issues, or they basically they have compulsions. It's not that it's their own choice that they kind of don't go ahead. But now, when you look at industries like finance, you see IT sector, you see the legal sector, women are equally represented. In fact, there could be more women than men in
Yes,
these sectors,
absolutely correct.
So, by naturally engineering kind of, and many engineering graduates move to the IT sector. They do not stay with core engineering and leadership. But it's a tall task to actually do uh, more than 100%, mostly all the time, to actually reach to these levels. And I would really look forward to more representation of women, because there is need for diversified views and a perspective of equal representation will give equal perspectives, also different perspectives, so it will bring a lot of variety to experiences which can be brought on the table. And at this point we need them, because there are a lot of challenges which as a nation we face, as a corporation we face, as individuals also we face. So there is definitely need to nurture and consciously kind of as a management directive, kind of a management initiative, take up the responsibility to kind of groom more women to come forward and take leadership roles, or the opportunity must be provided. Unless and until the opportunity is provided, it would not be easy, because there are many other factors which kind of hold back, or should I say, in a patriarchal society, we cannot think of idealism. So it won't happen. So you got to push yourself out, and you got to do cover all your, sides, and push yourself. So
Absolutely.
you would definitely get somebody who anchors you and takes you forward, or helps you in your journey in a career. But you got to make your own, inroads. There is nobody else who will help you. You have to help yourself.
Totally agree. Sonali Kulkarni from Fanok, she made this very nice statement in this series only. She said, I always think like it's Harry Potter you read. So there is a ceiling, but I just walk through it. So I think that is something which we all should aim towards. Vartika, you've supervised mega projects like BPCL, Kochi and Mumbai, MRPL, GAIL, BORL, IOCL, Indorama, the list goes on. It's a very male dominated area. I remember when I went to the Jamnagar refining complex when I was working with Reliance before I started my entrepreneur company. I only saw men around. Have you faced any difficulty in getting the line of control?
Uh, no, I change my strategy if I think that's happening. Uh, if I assess, and many times I won't say it does happen that the other person or the other teams take you kind of, you can kind of tell anything, give any statement, and get away with. So then I changed my strategy, and it from being gentle, it becomes aggressive, and because you have people whom you have to manage, and there are many ways which can be done in a corporate environment, but there are different ways which are required to be done when you handle vendors and contractors or even projects. This kind of a gentle behavior doesn't work then. So you've got to go out there and you've got your points in place and you've got to blast them. If you have to blast them, blast them.
मैम आई हैव टू
So
सी बिकॉज आई हैव येट टू सी यू काइंड ऑफ इन दैट मोड और आई एम सेइंग जो आपका लखनऊ का जो तहजीब और जो आपका अंदाज होगा आई एम डेफिनेटली वांट टू बी वन ऑफ द अदर साइड मीटिंग व्हेन यू आर ब्लास्टिंग पीपल आई वांट टू सी दैट Vartika, you're responsible for all the technical functions of the company, for all its activities from concept to commissioning of all projects in domestic and international markets. How does the entire process pan out? Just share for the benefit of our viewers, please.
so see, may I share how we work in EIL? You would
Yes,
like, I think
yes.
that would help.
Yes.
So the uniqueness about EIL is we work from concept to commissioning.
Yes.
So we do our first feasibilities, pre-feasibilities, then the detailed feasibilities, look at technologies, we evaluate technologies, and we've got a great team in process design. My parent department, which I was in my almost 25 years. And once we do that, then we have a kind of a design in place. And wherever we need to source technology from international markets, we source the technology, we do an assessment, evaluation, and all this we integrate in a very complex way for building up a mega refinery. Now, let's say you talk of you've been in Reliance, or you talk of Indian Oil's refinery, or you talk of HMEL refinery. These are all very complex, units, and they could cost something like $5-6 billion, which is a huge investment to go into any of these refinery and petrochemical complexes. So the process team does this work, and then it goes on to engineering, wherein we detail out everything in terms of the procurement. And we have a very robust commercial department who actually tenders out and made its material requisition to purchase these equipment. We have a quality division who looks at the inspection part, and the project management puts all this in place. And of course, we have a construction team who does the supervision at site to actually implement it. So there is a lot of complexity involved from end to end. We have a very specialized team who does designs of heat and mass transfer equipment, who does material selection, who looks at residual life assessment, who does stress analysis, who does environmental studies, who does safety studies. So there is a very complex kind of, but a very well woven and a very well experienced and well versed team. So they kind of bring up the project. One very critical element of our own contribution as EIL to the industry is the growth of the vendors and suppliers, and the contribution towards enlisting them as potential suppliers in our own vendor list. So that's a very huge contribution towards the manufacturing sector, towards the growth of MSME sector, and towards the growth of an atmanibhar Bharat, and it is a continual task. It's a continual task, and last few months, EIL has been dedicatedly handling different sectors of the industry, whether it is piping or instrumentation or equipment, by sharing what kind of issues come in procurement, in engineering, and also urging the industry to look at joint ventures with international players to bring in technology for fabrication, to kind of make more and more value addition into the Indian economy, add the VA value addition, so that we contribute to the GDP growth. So this is a very, very important element of EIL, which is very integral, and we are very, very good at this. Our teams are excellent in kind of hand holding these suppliers and manufacturers to kind of bring up themselves. We also have a program to onboard startup companies if, who are into manufacturing, and then when they onboard, then they actually grow into the MSME and have more and more track record to go out into the industry beyond EIL. So that's another very major role that we play in terms of project implementation.
I've had the opportunity to meet the entire EIL team. I think a few years back, we visited your office, and with the chairman, we were putting together the energy summit. That was the time. And what came across was it was a very well-oiled machinery within all departments. That is the, impression that we walked away with when we came out of the EIL office. And ma'am, I think you're putting all your focus on building cohesive partnerships from all across, whether it's vendors, it's the companies, petchem, refining, and amongst your own teams, so that, as you said, the GDP growth is the end result for all Indian citizens, as rightly said. Ma'am, you are continuously directing for growth in new areas of technology, diversifying related businesses, steering operational excellence and modernization at work processes to maintain competitive technological advantages. What focus do you think the Indian companies have on R&D versus the foreign companies' focus?
Uh, in 2015, uh, I walked up to my director and I told him that why don't you give me R&D? So at that time I was heading process. So he looks at me, and I mean, are you okay? I said, yeah, sure, sir. I would like to take that challenge because I have a lot of plans for R&D and how we can actually build it up. So I shifted from a comfort zone of my own division. I went on to look at R&D as well. And later on, with R&D, I was looking at engineering also. So when I moved out to R&D, actually, my eyes opened, and I realized the kind of potential that sits there, which is untapped and unrealized. And I'm happy to share that a lot of my colleagues and a lot of my, co-directors in other oil companies are equally focused, and we have a partnership with almost all of them. And the thrust that the companies have given on R&D from 2015-16, I have actually personally experienced the change is tremendous in Indian R&D. In comparison to the global R&D, there is a little bit of difference in the way Indian R&D is driven and the way internationally, R&Ds are, particularly in the oil and gas sector. The fundamental part of research as such is not that much of a focus in Indian R&D. More than that, it is taking the technologies from fundamental level to the commercial level, at least in the oil and gas sector. Because unless you find its end use, the R&D doesn't see, realization, and it doesn't bring back the satisfaction to the scientist. Of course, some of our own sister oil companies like Indian Oil and HPCL have really aggressively pushed R&D into a great mainstream. And a lot of the products they can put back because they're operating companies, they have the ability to do that. Of course, the sectors like pharma, we are as good as international. So there is no comparison to that in terms of national and international level. The challenges are tremendous, and that is why the plowing back of the benefits of R&D is a very painstaking task, if I would say. It really needs a lot of leadership at the corporate level to actually realize the benefits and handhold R&D. The commercial aspect, if we are looking at, it will be time consuming to come by. And looking at deploying the outcome of R&D without any proven track record, so as to speak, Like if the R&D has actually been deployed in some industry, it is easy to sell to another industry. But most of the R&D outcomes are not actually seeing commercialization. So how do you actually push that? And some of our technologies, which we have done jointly with Indian Oil, we have been fortunate that Indian Oil in their refineries, being our partners, have actually implemented them. So that gives immediate, space for commercialization. So there's a difference. The percentage of our GDP that we are spending is also much lower than international, whether we talk of US or we talk of China or we talk of Germany or Japan, for example. So those are challenges in R&D, but there is a sea change in the way R&D is perceived, was perceived 5 to 6 years back, and the way it is perceived now. Most of the companies are transforming, in particularly my sector, our sector, we are transforming more into energy companies. So we are transforming more into kind of integrated energy company. So research for that matter is uh, it encompasses a lot of other factors like renewables, not just limiting to oil and gas. So the transformation of R&D is quite akin to the transformation in the energy sector itself, and that is a need. So there are many projects of national importance which are being looked at, whether we talk of green hydrogen, whether we talk of hydrogen per se in fuel, whether we talk of renewables, we talk of biotechnology as a whole. So these are all transformation to R&D. I think R&D in the last few years actually has transformed in the nation, particularly in the oil and gas.
Ma'am, I think what you're sharing is that the direction is good. The speed could be a little more faster in that vertical. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually uh, uh, I would put it could be more focused, I would say, because R&D has a time frame, uh, and I have seen uh, the scientists, so as to speak, have are very passionate to their work, and they kind of sometimes to bring them the awareness that the R&D has to go into a tangible outcome, particularly from industry perspective. That kind of bridging of gap, if it is more focused and more kind of concentrated, I think the outcome could be a lot better.
Well agreed. You mentioned renewables. You've been responsible for identifying process technologies and indigenization of technologies in renewables. What is the future, at least for the next 2 years, for renewables in India?
Uh, there is a lot of impetus, and you already mentioned some of them, the part of the national biofuel policy, the impetus to 2G ethanol, the impetus to the Satat scheme, which is looking at 5,000 CBG plants. And there are a lot of LOIs, I think over, I couldn't say a wrong number, so, but hundreds of LOIs have been distributed to investors, and they are already setting up these plants. Something like 15 million ton of gas can be replaced by the CBG plants. So that kind of thrust in renewables is actually going to bring a lot of change and a lot of self-reliance in terms of the gas utilization. If you know the stats, almost more than 50% of the LPG that we use is imported. We do not produce all of it, and the LPG penetration is more than 99% now, and very few households actually use kerosene. So phasing out of that and LPG penetration and looking at renewables of like CBG is actually going to transform the energy sector. Uh, Having said that, the energy space is actually going to very fast become, consumer driven, because there will be a lot of renewables which will be added in terms of solar power generation and a lot of other uh, distributed kind of installations which will actually plow back into the grid, either it's a gas grid or it is the electricity grid. So consumers are going to have a lot of choice. And if you see the prices also, you see the price in which we are having the generations today, they are quite competitive. So that kind of transformation is actually going to steer the sector a lot more in terms of the choices of consumer, because the consumer is going to have a diverse kind of energy portfolio to choose from. You look at the EV space,
Yeah, yeah,
it is essentially consumer driven. The
yes,
economics of that is entirely the choice of consumer. Of course, there is the capacity also to manufacture, but it works hand in hand. It's a demand supply kind of thing.
yes,
So
yes.
it will change this as we see in the next 2 years. 2 years we should see this kind of integrated kind of transformation in the domain of energy.
Well said. Uh, Vartika, there's never been more focus on Atmanirbhar India than it is today. Where does Atmanirbhar India role you see in the World Energy Forum?
Uh, we are quite dependent, more than 85% dependent on our oil, and more than 50% on our gas. And we need that energy, and we are per capita one third of the energy consumption in the world. So we need to have our people get that energy. Now, we can work in two ways in terms of Atmanirbhar Bharat. One is we need to build the capacity of our own industry in terms of manufacturing, because if we are able to uh, expand our manufacturing base, whether it is equipments in the oil and gas sector or it is in any other sector, we expand that and we actually have the ability to export it to other nations uh, with the advantages that we have in terms of raw materials, in terms of, let's say aluminium, for example. So that kind of impetus can go into creating a more Atmanirbhar Bharat. And in my own space, I would say, let's say, we have a lot of technologies, and it would be looking out to actually compete in the world market, to become globally competitive in that also. Because if unless and until you are competitive, you would not be able to succeed for very long. One or two products or one or two jobs you can, but you need to be globally competitive. You bring in that resilience, that kind of cutting edge into your own product or technology. So that kind of focused attention would be needed to go back into Atmanirbhar Bharat. Of course, we have a lot of coal. So, looking at coal, monetizing coal, and clean coal technologies could be another area where we actually reduce our dependence on energy and focus more on what we have as our own asset.
Ma'am, you're the co-author of 30 patents. That's 30. What is the source of your inspiration?
Um, how do I answer that?
Ma'am, you're a scientist. Next time going to call you Scientist Vartika.
Uh, when I took over the teams at R&D, I used to sit and brainstorm with them, and I learned a lot from them. And what I did was I tried with my teams to dovetail the practical experience aspect into innovation, because a lot of the developments or innovations are not fundamental in nature. They it is very difficult to invest in fundamental research. But the application part of it, which is EIL's forte, most of our, let's say about 50% of our total patents today are commercialized. It is very difficult to get that kind of commercialization percentages of it. So, uh, what we sat together and we brainstormed, and each and every issue which came with our own technologies, wherein we could do improvements, whether it was a process improvement which reduced the energy requirement, or it reduced the sizing in terms of process intensification, or it led to some of the techniques of low level heat recoveries, or it looked at some of the hardware designs wherein there was, after a few, 6 months or 8 months of operations, there was repeated need for kind of shutting down and cleaning. So how do you do the mechanical designs of it? How you do the computational fluid dynamics to assess which is the best design, which is going forward, which will help. So my role and my contribution to the team, because there was a team who is more from the amalgamation of the practical, adoption and experience of technology, and the blending of the fundamental, or would I say the conceptual part of designs and research. So that kind of blend actually leapfrogged a lot of innovations, and that's how these were filed by our teams. And I'm very proud of my teams, because uh, many times teams hold themselves back. And I have seen that with a lot of teams, that they know well, but the confidence level is probably because the experience part of it, or the practicality part of it, is not implemented with it. So that's how we have actually innovated a lot of our own designs. We've improved a lot of our own process technologies, and we have introduced a lot of more technologies which are awaiting market to kind of adopt. So this is how I have been able to steer the teams. And the proudest moment for me is something else, and I'd like love to share with you. As When I moved on to the board, I leave these administrative aspects to the team, and I'm no longer kind of part of it. And I would be happy to share that sitting here, I steered some of these ideas to my other engineering teams. That you all do a lot of designs in hardware and heaters, and we are one of the best designers in the world. Why don't you look at some of these hardware innovations and patent them? And you won't believe, they, within the span of, let's say, last year, they have filed almost 11 hardware patents on designs which we have been doing for tens of years. And the recognition of that in terms of an intellectual property was not given. So it is very important to look at these aspects, to groom the people, to add value to the people, to add value to the company, to build, the brand value of the company.
How beautiful. What a leadership, that propelled them so that they could completely get what was in pipeline when they joined. Thank you for sharing. It's so interesting to hear that. Finally, Vartika, you are nurturing the vision to develop indigenous technology for gasification, methanol, DMX synthesis. What more is there on Vartika Shukla's drawing board?
So, one dream which I am trying to fulfill, my teams are working with me, is to go digital end to end. And that will increase a lot of our project delivery. And when I talk end to end, I mean exactly right up to the end point of projects, managing even the materials at site, besides the engineering aspect. And the second thing which I'm very passionate about is going from local to global, because I want to take all our technologies from India to overseas. And even one or two achievements which happen is really going to energize my whole team. And I mean, it's going to make EIL very proud. So these are the two things which are I'm very passionate about, and I'm personally steering these two, you know, initiatives. And so that's my dream, and I really hope I get a chance to share that with you soon.
It's been such a beautiful session. I must share, it's so easy to speak to you, and you speak from a sense of so much of confidence, and everything that you do comes from the heart. It glows on your face when you say that. It's like your work is like your children. That is how you're bringing all of them up. And I'm really blessed to have this session with you. It's always going to remain in my memory. And I'm sure all the industry people who watch this session, especially the girls and the women, is going to be a leading light for them. They're going to learn from your experiences, and it will propel them to go forward, take the initiative like you have. You are a leading light of our industry, ma'am, and we bow to you.
Thank you. And if I may be permitted to add a few things to our, if you mentioned all the women and the ladies are going to watch this, and sometimes speak to a lot of women, and there is a saying that behind every man there is a successful woman. It says that. That's what everybody says. So I put up one which says that behind every successful woman, it is the woman herself. So
Love you, ma'am. Love you too much.
thank you.
And looking forward to see you in Delhi whenever. And in our next summit, I'm wanting to give you the Establishment Woman Award. You're too young to give you the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Thank you so much,
Bye,
Nidhi.
ma'am.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Thank
Lovely
you so
being
much.
here. Lovely being here. And God bless you, and God bless everyone. Thank you.
Bye, ma'am.